President Biden has said he would sign the bill, but its fate in the Senate is unclear. And of course, before any of that, it must pass the House, which is possible tomorrow. To discuss are the House sponsors, Congressman Mike Gallagher and Raja Krishnamoorthi, chair and ranking member, respectively, of the Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party. Let me ask right at the top, what is the danger of TikTok that you see?
The fundamental danger is that TikTok is owned by ByteDance, and ByteDance is beholden to the Chinese Communist Party. So from this flow two concerns, one being the security of Americans' data on the platform, but the other, and I think broader concern, is the potential for this platform to be used for the propaganda purposes of the Chinese Communist Party. And there we got a preview of what could happen in that scenario last week when TikTok pushed a push notification to all its users asking them for their zip code and then having them call members of Congress. It was based on a completely inaccurate message to their users, and you had teenagers calling Congress saying, you know, if you ban TikTok, I'll kill myself. Imagine what could happen the closer we get to an election. The unclassified Director of National Intelligence Assessment released yesterday said TikTok is already being used to target members of Congress in both parties politically.
I know both of you probably have got those phone calls, including today. And I know this is a carefully targeted bill, but still today we saw on the Hill TikTok creators and other members of Congress speaking out saying they think that this is a violation of basic rights. I wonder how you approach the First Amendment issues. Do you understand the First Amendment issues at play, the business issues at play, and why is this worth it?
Sure. Well, first of all, there's no First Amendment right to espionage. There's no First Amendment right to harm our national security. Basically, we commonly have foreign ownership laws with regard to broadcast outlets, telecoms, railroads, banks, and so forth. So this is not unusual. What we're saying is that an establishment such as this platform can basically engage in free speech as it is. We are not trying to ban the content or trying to discriminate between one type of speech versus another. What we're concerned about is the conduct of the platform and being used in the ways that Mike alluded to. For instance, weaponizing data against people, endangering our national security in other ways, interfering in our elections, basically doing the things that go against our national security. So we want this platform to continue to operate. We don't want to ban it, but we are calling for a divestment of TikTok by ByteDance so that we can continue to have this platform operate, but without the control of the CCP.
But realistically, Congressman Gallagher, wouldn't a possible effect be the loss of this content, the banning of this platform?
Doesn't need to be. The TikTok user experience can continue and even improve as long as ByteDance decides to sell TikTok. That is the obvious solution that everybody wants. Even those who are invested in ByteDance should want that outcome, because if TikTok's ever going to go public in an American market, it's simply not going to happen under the current ownership structure. And I would say the greatest threat to expression on TikTok, which this bill doesn't say anything about, is continued CCP manipulation of the algorithm and the lack of transparency surrounding TikTok's algorithm. So if you want the platform to continue and improve going forward, the only solution, the most responsible and prudent solution, is a separation.
You know, there was a Montana ban against TikTok, which was struck down. And that's not what I know it's not a ban that you have in the same way. But the judge took on some of your arguments in that case. The judge did not see a national security argument there, also felt that users are agreeing to give out their data. So I wonder how you respond to that idea from TikTok and ByteDance that there really isn't proof that they've maliciously harmed U.S. citizens.
Well, first of all, in that particular Montana case, the judge basically said that Montana was not in a position to judge the national security interests of the country. In this case, the Biden administration is actually asking for this legislation. The Biden administration actually helped to fashion the legislation and is able to assert its authority in a way that, you know, the Montana legislature was not. The other thing I would just say is, again, what we know that TikTok has said about its own platform is untrue. TikTok said that its user data, American user data, is stored here in America or Singapore. That's false. Some of the data has been stored on PRC servers in China. Secondly, TikTok says that its data is not accessible to people in China. Again, false. Published reports show that Chinese-based ByteDance employees have routinely accessed this data unbeknownst to American users. And then third, TikTok says this data has not been weaponized in any way. Again, false. Published reports, including by journalists who were targeted by TikTok for reporting on these data access issues, have repeatedly said that their user location data was used against them. And so, we can't abide a situation where the company that says that it's not doing X, Y, and Z is actually doing it, and then just look away pretending there's no national security concern.
In the last minute or so we have here, you've both seen classified information about this situation that most Americans don't have access to. But I wonder, considering that, what do you say to kids, perhaps Congressman Krishnamoorthi, your kids who are TikTok age, about whether they should be using it, and to those content providers about why you're making this pretty profound move by the U.S. government?
Well, Mike has kids, too. They're a little younger, but I've got an 18, 14, and 7, so I'm ready for anything in Congress. But in all seriousness, my kids don't use it, although they've talked to me about it in the past because of the issues that I alluded to before. I'll just say, and Mike and I have mentioned this before, the content that you see on TikTok in the United States is so different than the content that you see on Douyin, which is the TikTok equivalent in China. In China, they promote content about healthy living, about STEM education, about calisthenics and exercise, even for young adults. Here in the United States, it's about drug paraphernalia, over-sexualization of teenagers, and it's constant content about suicidal ideation. That's wrong. We can't have that situation where the algorithm is manipulated in that way. With regard to legitimate content providers and others, we want you to be able to continue doing what you're doing. We just don't want to have a platform that's controlled by the CCP. I expect that just as before when we required the Chinese to divest Grindr, which was then controlled by a Chinese company, they quickly did it. There was no disruption of service to the users, and that's what we'll see with TikTok as well.
And my message to my 3.5-year-old and 1.5-year-old is that they should do whatever Raja's kids are doing, because I've met them. They're extremely smart, and I want my kids to grow up and be as responsible and smart as Raja's kids. So I've outsourced my parenting to Raja in this case.
I approve that message.
Well, we appreciate both of you talking to us, and I'm sure your kids will be watching this on the show tonight. Congressman Mike Gallagher and Raja Krishnamoorthi.